Spiritual awakening is one of the most misunderstood experiences in the human journey. People imagine it as a moment where everything becomes peaceful and blissful, as if your mind suddenly becomes quiet, your life becomes simple, and your heart becomes free overnight. But in truth, awakening is far closer to a demolition than a celebration. It is less about gaining knowledge and more about losing illusions. Illusions that have shaped your thinking, your identity, and your emotional world since childhood. These illusions become so deeply embedded in your perception that they feel normal, unquestionable, and even necessary for survival. Awakening reveals that they were never real to begin with. Before awakening, you move through life guided by unconscious beliefs. You accept the stories that society gives you. You inherit emotional patterns from your family without realizing it. You learn definitions of success, love, happiness, and identity that were created by a world that is itself asleep. Over time, these beliefs harden into illusions, mental structures that limit your ability to see reality clearly. You mistake these structures for truth. You identify with them so strongly that when awakening begins to remove them, it can feel like you are being removed. Awakening does not begin with light. It begins with discomfort. It begins when you notice that something feels off, that the life you're living does not match the depth of who you are. It begins with a crack in the wall of illusion. Maybe you feel disconnected from your old ambitions. Maybe you question the roles you play. Maybe suffering becomes so intense that you can no longer pretend everything is fine. Whatever the trigger, awakening starts by shaking the foundation of your inner world. As the illusions start to weaken, a profound honesty emerges. You begin to question your thoughts instead of believing them. You examine your emotions instead of drowning in them. You start noticing how much of your behavior is driven by fear, conditioning, and the need for approval. This honesty can be uncomfortable because it exposes the artificial layers of your personality. But it also marks the beginning of freedom. Awakening is not about becoming spiritual. It is about becoming authentic. When illusions fall away, what remains is your real self, silent, aware, present, and untouched by the noise of the ego. This process is not gentle. It can feel like losing everything you once clung to. But what you are actually losing is the false self. The self that was built from expectations, wounds, and beliefs that never belonged to you. In this journey, the most significant transformations come from seeing through illusions. That is why this video explores 6 of the most powerful illusions that disappear after awakening. These illusions shape how you perceive yourself, how you relate to others, and how you interpret life itself. When they dissolve, something extraordinary happens. You begin to experience reality without distortion. You see clearly, you feel deeply, you live consciously. Awakening does not give you new answers. It removes the lies that were preventing you from recognizing the truth already inside you. One of the first and most powerful illusions that disappears after spiritual awakening is the illusion of control. Before awakening, most people live under the belief that they are the absolute architects of their reality, that everything must go according to their plans, expectations, and timelines. This belief becomes a source of constant anxiety because reality rarely obeys our desires. Yet we cling to the illusion of control because it makes us feel safe. It gives us the comforting impression that life is predictable and manageable, even when it isn't. The illusion of control begins in childhood. We are taught that effort equals outcome, that hard work guarantees success, and that if we do everything right, life will reward us. These ideas create a framework that seems logical, but it ignores the truth of existence. Life is a complex, interconnected, unpredictable field of forces, most of which lie far beyond personal command. Still, the ego insists on controlling everything. People, situations, emotions, the future, even the past through endless mental replay. Awakening disrupts this illusion dramatically. You begin to notice that the things you desperately tried to manage were never in your command. You see how relationships, careers, opportunities, and challenges often arise from forces outside your control. You recognize that the universe moves according to its own rhythm, not yours. This realization can feel terrifying at first, because the ego resists it. The ego does not want surrender. It wants domination. It wants certainty, predictability, and guarantees. But as awakening deepens, something shifts. Instead of trying to control life, you start observing it. Instead of forcing outcomes, you allow them. You no longer demand that things unfold according to your expectations. You become curious about how they will unfold naturally. This shift is not passiveness. It is intelligence. You stop wasting energy on illusions and you begin aligning with reality as it is. Letting go of control does not mean letting go of responsibility. It means letting go of the belief that you can manipulate life into a perfect shape. You still take action, but the action is free from fear. You still plan, but you no longer panic when plans change. You still care, but you no longer cling. The need to micromanage every detail dissolves, replaced by a deeper trust in the flow of existence. This surrender does not make you weaker. It makes you stronger. When you stop resisting what already is, you free up the emotional and mental energy that was previously trapped in forcing outcomes. You become more adaptable, more intuitive, and more aligned with the natural rhythm of life. You begin to see opportunities where before you saw obstacles. You begin to make decisions from clarity rather than fear. The illusion of control fades, and in its place arises something far more powerful, the realization that life is not happening against you, it is happening through you. When this illusion disappears, life becomes significantly lighter. You no longer carry the impossible burden of controlling the universe. You simply allow the universe to unfold, and in that allowing, a deeper harmony emerges. One Tath illusion of separation is one of the deepest and most persistent illusions human beings live under. Before spiritual awakening, most people walk through the world believing they are fundamentally alone, an isolated self trapped inside a body, disconnected from others, from nature, and even from life itself. This illusion shapes almost everything: our fears, our ambitions, our anxieties, our relationships, and our survival instincts. It becomes the invisible lens through which we interpret every experience. From childhood onward, we are taught to think in terms of me and them, mine and yours, self and other. The mind divides the world into categories and identities. This separation seems natural because it's reinforced everywhere, in school, in society, in cultural narratives, in competition, in comparison, and in the constant search for approval. Yet underneath all of these layers, something in us quietly feels incomplete, as if we're missing a connection we cannot name. Spiritual awakening dissolves this illusion, not through belief but through direct experience. It's as if a veil lifts and you suddenly sense that everything is woven together by a subtle living intelligence. The boundaries that once felt solid begin to soften. You start perceiving life not as a collection of competing individuals, but as a single interconnected field of consciousness expressing itself in countless forms. The illusion of separation fades in many ways. First, you begin to feel others more deeply. Empathy becomes effortless. You sense people's emotions not because they tell you, but because you feel them in your own awareness. You realize that hurting another is in some way hurting yourself. Compassion stops being a virtue and becomes a natural state. Second, you start noticing the unity within nature. The wind, the sky, the trees, the animals, everything seems alive in a way you didn't notice before. The environment no longer feels like a backdrop to your life. It feels like part of who you are. This connection brings profound peace because you finally feel like you belong to something infinite and harmonious. Third, the separation between your thoughts, emotions, and awareness begins to dissolve. You see that you are not the thinker. You are the space in which thoughts appear. You are not the emotion. You are the presence in which emotions move. This revelation frees you from internal conflict because you no longer see your inner world as a battleground. The different parts of you are no longer enemies. They are movements within a single awareness. As the illusion of separation dissolves, loneliness transforms. You may still spend time alone physically, but you no longer feel alone. There is a quiet sense of companionship with existence itself. You feel supported by the same force that moves stars, shapes oceans, and breathes life into every living being. This shift also changes your relationships. You stop seeking people to fill your emptiness. Instead, you connect from fullness. You no longer need validation, nor do you depend on others to complete you. You begin to love without fear, without expectation, without possession, because you understand that love is not something exchanged between two separate selves. It is the natural expression of unity recognized. When the illusion of separation disappears, a profound truth becomes clear. You were never alone. You were simply dreaming of being separate. Awakening is the moment you open your eyes within that dream and realize the one life living through all beings is the same life living through you. One of the most deeply rooted illusions in the human mind is the belief that we are in control of life. Before awakening, almost everyone moves through the world with a quiet but constant effort to manage, predict, manipulate, and force the outcomes they desire. We plan obsessively, worry endlessly, imagine every possible scenario, and mentally rehearse conversations that may never happen. All of this creates the comforting illusion that we are directing our lives like the captain of a ship. But this illusion is fragile. It breaks easily during crisis, loss, illness, heartbreak, or unexpected change. Moments when life ignores our plans entirely. And yet, instead of recognizing the illusion, the mind tries even harder to control things, believing that more effort equals more safety. Spiritual awakening shatters this illusion in a profound way. It shows you that life has never truly been in your control, and that it doesn't need to be. There is an intelligence far greater than the mind directing everything from the movement of galaxies to the beating of your heart. Awakening is not a surrender of responsibility. It is a surrender of the false belief that you as a separate ego are the one making everything happen. This realization often begins with a moment of deep clarity. You see that every major event in your life, every hour, relationship, every loss, every opportunity, every transformation, unfolded in ways you could never have predicted. You see that life led you to certain people, removed others, placed obstacles in your path, and opened doors exactly when you needed them. You realize that even your most painful experiences shaped you in ways you now understand were necessary for your growth. With this understanding, the mind's constant struggle softens. You become less interested in controlling life and more interested in participating in it. Instead of fighting the current, you learn to flow with it. Instead of resisting what comes, you begin to trust that there is meaning behind every movement. This trust does not come from blind faith. It comes from observation. You begin to see patterns. You notice how certain challenges lead to breakthroughs. You see how endings create space for new beginnings. You start recognizing that life is always reorganizing itself toward your evolution, even when you can't see the full picture. As the illusion of control dissolves, so does anxiety. Instead of being consumed by what-if scenarios, you become grounded in the present moment. You recognize that fear arises from trying to live in a future that doesn't exist yet. The more you rest in what is instead of what should be, the more peaceful your inner world becomes. This does not mean you stop taking action. It means your actions arise from clarity, not fear. You do what you can, but you no longer torture yourself over outcomes. You let life carry what you cannot. You stop trying to force timing, people, or situations. You no longer cling to rigid expectations. This kind of surrender is not weakness. It is freedom. It is strength that comes from alignment, not resistance. It is the courage to trust life's intelligence more than your own fear-driven plans. And perhaps the most beautiful part is this. When you stop trying to control everything, your life begins to unfold with the grace and synchronicity you could never have engineered. Opportunities appear effortlessly. Relationships become more harmonious. Decisions become clearer. Challenges become teachers instead of threats. You discover that life was never meant to be controlled, only lived, trusted, and experienced with an open heart. Awakening doesn't remove your ability to shape your life. It removes the illusion that you must force it. It teaches you to participate consciously, to align with truth, and to allow the deeper intelligence of existence to guide your path. In surrendering control, you gain something far greater: peace, clarity, and an intimate partnership with life itself.